What's going on, everybody? Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on the way in. That intro didn't feel right. Let's do that again. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on the way in. There we go. Hold up better. Hold up better. Hold up better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is play the definition for hypernormalization, and then I'm going to play a definition for atomized. Or although I don't like this one, it's not really describing atomized in a societal sense. So I would go more with the link I left in the description for atomized, which is a guy being interviewed by Joe Rogan. I'm speaking about it, so we'll do it like that. So let's start off. If I can remember what I'm doing. Yes, it does look like I know what I'm doing. Okay, we're gonna start off with the definition of hypernormalization. What's going on, Trill? What's going on, Longo? What's going on, DeVito? Right? What's up? What's up? So yeah, Trill pretty much got it right. The fakeness was hypernormal. Pretty. Yeah, yeah. Right. So let's give that definition from Adam Curtis's mouth himself. Right. So I'm gonna play this. Hopefully you guys can hear it. If you guys can't hear it or if it's too low, let me know. Right. But here we go. Hopefully I get it right. The term comes from a rather interesting guy who wrote about what it was like to live in the Soviet Union in the middle of the 1980s, when the Soviet Union was collapsing, because there wasn't really any protest at the time. What he pointed out is that everyone knew that everything was not right. They knew that those in control had no control. They knew that those running the economy were not in control, that everything was corrupt and often completely fake because the leaders were pretending they were in control. Everybody knew this, and the leaders knew that everybody knew this, but nobody did anything about it because there was nothing else. It was normal. And he coined the phrase hypernormalization to describe this. Somehow you knew that everything was a bit odd and a bit unreal and often fake, but because there was no other picture of the world and you were so within this system, you accepted it as normal and just went on. And what I'm trying to argue in this film is not that in any way we're like the Soviet Union. We're a very different society, but what we do share with that time is a sense among a lot of people that things are a bit odd and unreal and sometimes fake, and that those in charge know that they're not in charge, and they know that we know they're not in charge of things, that everything is a bit chaotic, uncertain. We distrust everyone in charge. We also know those in charge allow a great deal of corruption to carry on without doing much about it. We know that they're not in control of the economy. They know that we know they're not in control of the economy. But at the very same time, we are so much a part of that system that we don't have any vision of an alternative. And I include by that the left. They don't have a vision of an alternative. So we accept it as normal. When you see... Right? So, yeah. So, yeah. I really actually really like that. Quick to the point. That's about a minute and 15 seconds, right? A minute and a quarter of pretty much a really good description of hypernormalization, which is us getting used to something that's not right. It's odd, something's not right there, but you're also invested in the system also, right? So it's fake, or something's not right, or something's a little off, and it actually poses a problem in society. It's not like it's something that's odd, but we're like, yeah, it's not that serious. No, it is that serious. It's just that you also are invested, right? So we're gonna tie that into BGS and him speaking about the single male in a minute, right? So let me also play the definition for atomized, which I didn't really like, but it is correct in one part, and I will explain that in a minute. So it's gonna be really quick. Here we go.
What is the meaning of the word atomization? As a noun, separating something into fine particles. Annihilation by reducing something to atoms. Atomization is
So the separating into fine particles is pretty accurate. Imagine that societally. I think the best way to give an example is a tree and just watching the branches branch off, right? And so we're no longer in the space of different opinions. We're in the space of different facts. So look at the debate people would have when we had the same facts and different opinions, right? Look at all the different opinions that came from us understanding, like, this is a table,
and now we're going to debate the color of the table, what brown or tan it is, and then we're going to debate what wood it's made out of. Now we don't even agree that it may be a table, and then we're going to debate on why we even call it a table, right? And who came up with the definite who came up with this term table, right? Like that's where we are, where we're getting when you have alternative facts, right? Shout out to Kelly and Conway. When you have alternative facts, or when we don't even agree on the same facts, how do you even come to anywhere near the same opinion? Now, once again, I would like to direct you to your nearest tree. It started off the same, but the branches in certain parts of the tree are so far apart, those leaves are never going to see each other. They're never going to understand what it's like to grow up on the left side of the tree compared to the right side of the tree, right? When they're 50 feet apart, 20 feet apart, 10, well, maybe not 10, but 25 feet apart, right? So they're all being fed by the same soil, right? And the same sun, but they're living, maybe depending on the environment, they're almost living two different situations, right? So I'm going to play the definition of hypernormalization again, and then we're going to get into BGS's video about the single male not having sex, women in same-sex relationships, which Mr. Z already told y'all about. And so let's get into that. Give me 1 second. We're going to play the definition of hypernormalization one more time. I'll play it again a little bit later, but let me play this one more time. Give me a second.
The term comes from a rather interesting guy who wrote about what it was like to live in the Soviet Union in the middle of the 1980s, where the Soviet Union was collapsing, because there wasn't really any protest at the time. What he pointed out is that everyone knew that everything was not right. They knew that those in control had no control. They knew that those running the economy were not in control, that everything was corrupt and often completely fake because the leaders were pretending they were in control. Everybody knew this, and the leaders knew that everybody knew this, but nobody did anything about it because there was nothing else. It was normal. And he coined the phrase hypernormalization to describe this. Somehow you knew that everything was a bit odd and a bit unreal and often fake, but because there was no other picture of the world and you were so within this system, you accepted it as normal and just went on. And what I'm trying to argue in this film is not that in any way we're like the Soviet Union. We're a very different society, but what we do share with that time is a sense among a lot of people that things are a bit odd and unreal and sometimes fake, and that those in charge know that they're not in charge, and they know that we know they're not in charge of things, that everything is a bit chaotic, uncertain. We distrust everyone in charge. We also know those in charge allow a great deal of corruption to carry on without doing much about it. We know that they're not in control of the economy. They know that we know they're not in control of the economy. But at the very same time, we are so much a part of that system that we don't have any vision of an alternative. And I include by that the left. They don't have a vision of an alternative. So we accept it as normal. When you see...
Yeah. So, yeah. Trell went into a different definition of table. We're talking about a table with chairs, Trell. Trell about to give y'all a whole no, Trell was about to go into the, when you click a word or when you're trying to find the definition of a word, and then there's the bullet points for the other definitions of a word, right? And one of them is obscure, and like if you're in the know, you're in the know, right? It's like kind of parlance for a particular industry or particular like legalese, right? If you're not an attorney, you don't understand legalese, right? So or a lawyer, right? So yeah, so I would argue what we're seeing now is the atomization and the hypernormalization of male-female relationships all across the West. That's what I would submit to everybody, including the brother BGS. We live in a society that's so comfortable, we may be getting further and further away from our shared experiences, right? And because you can curate your own reality through social media, through who you hang around with on social media, we're getting to a place now, and there's so much content on the internet. We're getting to the place now where people aren't having these kind of shared experiences in conversations. We're allowed to, into our echo chambers, regurgitate the same poorly interpreted facts with each other. We are, kind of we don't have many of these shared experiences. Now, that's a yes and a no, what I'm saying, because we understand, especially when you're Black and you grow up in certain environments, you listen to much of the same music. You consume much of the mainstream television, mainstream media, you consume much of that the same. But outside of that, especially when we start dealing with social media, it may be different, right? It's not even that it may be different, it is different. Um, and that there's a cost to that, right? Um, what I'm arguing is that men and women having these different experiences online is causing us to separate further and further, right? Particularly when you factor in that women are attending college and university more than men are, they're graduating even more than men are. You're ending up in two very distinctively different places, right? And the reason why I played, so that's atomization, what I just described somewhat. Hypernormalization is the young men knowing that something's not right, something's odd, right? So this is Mr. Z saying the system putting its thumbs on the scales for the women, right? So this is where feminism comes in. And I would argue certain parts of radical feminism, where the system is putting its thumb on the scales for the women, i.e., the debate between Rollo and Richard Reeves on Dr. Phil's show, right? Where Richard Reeves is pretty much saying Rollo is speaking about biological determinism, right? Which is like you were born a girl, ovaries, menstrual cycle, so like you're not limited to a certain behavior, but that's probably would be, but it would probably behoove you to act a certain way and comport yourself a certain way, right? And conduct yourself a certain way and lean into certain skills. And what Richard Reeves was saying is like, no, we live in an advanced society. No one is limited to what we traditionally thought a man should act like and speak like and walk like, or what a woman should act like and be like and talk like and walk like, right? Because what you're doing is very, very, not just limiting. That's not the word I'm looking for. Constraining, right? So we get into this kind of talk about biological determinism. Yeah, it's getting real wonky, everyone. Real wonky. My apologies, right? So what the men, I would argue, and this is getting to hypernormalization, are saying is, yeah, something ain't right, so we're just gonna stay right here, or we're gonna go backwards, or we're gonna, resign ourselves to our video game systems and our, and porn and find other like minds, young men who will enjoy this with us, other young men. And the women are saying, well, we'll share, and they're not saying it overtly, right? Because none of them want to admit that they're sharing all the baller dudes or all the super good looking dudes that all of them are chasing after, whether that's white women, Black women, Latina women, Asian women, right? In America or in the West, right? They're either sharing the same type of, top 20, top 10% guys, or they're enjoying each other's company. Giggity, right? This is something for those of you that ever watched the conversation with me and FD Signifier, when I got a bit frustrated. I said, well, then go into, engage in same-sex relationships. And I meant it. And that is what the ladies are doing. There's a video of a heavyset dark-skinned woman that O'Shea Duke Jackson covered. And the young lady, she supposedly was LGBTQ, and she, was proud of that, and she's been featured on so many different magazines, and they've done articles about her and such and such. Well, apparently she might have a boyfriend right now, right? Why is Mr. Z bringing this up? Mr. Z is bringing this up to say the women will engage with each other. They will share men. They will engage in what everyone sees as disgusting when men do it, which is go way younger just to scratch an itch, right? They'll have a young man coming through using her as target practice, right? So this is where we talk about your 48-year-old, air quotes, dating, not really, your 48-year-old woman, air quotes, dating your 25-year-old young man, right? Because everybody say it's dating when the woman is just being used as target practice and she's using him to scratch an itch, right? Which, by the way, nothing wrong with. If it's legal, it's legal, right? But yeah, so, and Big Kev, give me a second because I'm on the road right now. So give me a second so before I can read that, right? No, well, it's actually going to take me a little bit more than a second, but okay. And so this kind of, you can argue disjunction between what men are experiencing and what women are experiencing, and what we are not only our education post high school, post post high school. Not only are we having different experiences with that, we're consuming much of this much different entertainment online, on social media, who we're subscribed to, what we watch, what we find entertaining, right? And social media is allowing people to curate such a vastly different reality that when they come into real reality, right, IRL, when they're in real life, for some of my old heads that may not know, right, when they get into in real life, they can't relate. And we didn't even get into what these schools are teaching the young women and how feminism has impacted the entire conversation, right? Particularly radical feminism. We haven't even got into that yet, right? And what, let's bring back I don't need no man feminism, i.e. Miss Kim Foster, what that looks like when you actually engage with that on a societal level, right? The whole, as BGS was reading in the article, the whole women would rather go on, girl dates or whatever, rather go on brunch or whatever with other girls than go on a bad date. And it's the extremes for me, right? The extremes. Pretty much, if you're not kissing her and if you're not buying her, then it's a bad date. If you don't fit into whatever romance novel idea she has of a man, right, or whatever rom-com idea she has of a man, if you don't fit nice and neat into that, it's a bad date, and she wasted her time, and she should have just went to brunch with her friends, right? Then we have women's insanely high, retardedly high, comically high, air quotes, standards when it comes to men. Shout out to Courtney Ryan, right? And for clarification, for those of you that have ever seen the videos from Courtney Ryan where she's interviewing the young women in their 20s, spanning pretty much from early 20s to late 20s, I think even maybe shipping off into some early 30s, but mainly let's say 20s, right? All across the 20s. It was, Abba and Priest, particularly Abba, was convinced that these women were well-to-do women, right? Young women that come from well-to-do families. In actuality, Courtney Ryan put in the comments, yeah, a couple of them, but not all, right? And excuse my background. I know I'm probably borging right now. Give me a second. I will repeat myself in 1 minute because I know the area I'm in right now is somewhat of a dead zone. So let's say a lot of this again in a minute, right? Give me 1 second, everybody, because I know I'm gonna have to repeat myself in a second, so there's no reason to. Okay, got in front of me to do what exactly? Not a damn thing. Look at you, just ruining traffic. It's just in the way. Yeah, thank you very much for being in the way, you a-hole. Okay. All right, everybody. So continuing. So I would argue that that is the atomization and the hypernormalization of our society between young women is intimacy, pair bonding, right? And once again, like women's unchecked, insane hypergamy, and that fire being stoked by social media, and now everybody can see it. I always find it interesting when you watch these videos, or when Abba and Preach cover it, you'll see women in the comments like, where are y'all getting these women from? From across the country, from across the West, primarily America. But this is not like, and it was something that, rest in peace, Kevin Samuels, it was something that Kevin Samuels was accused of, right? Like cherry picking certain people to come on the show, or certain people being attracted to this that already have a certain demeanor about themselves, and that's why they were giving some of these insane answers. And what we're finding more and more is like, no, these are the women that y'all pretended didn't exist, right? So if the young men are attracted to these young women when in high school, and maybe, excuse me, these girls when they're in high school, these young women when they're in early college years, can you blame these young men for being the way they are, for being a bit recluse, right? For resigning themselves to the internet, social media, porn, video games, right? Going to work, coming back home, and whether they're going to chill with their friends or not. Can you blame them for that, right? Yes, the society is that toxic to young men, and if we also speak about the decline of the family, the very well done video that Green Gorilla did about a month ago now, or three weeks to a month ago now, right? If we go over that also, then we understand that this was also a plot of the feminists. Like, they did this on purpose. This was not by accident. What we're dealing with now is not by accident. This was done on purpose to purposely separate the women from the men, targeting the minds, the sensibility, and the feelings of the women, right? And attacking the money of the men, right? The wealth of the men, the ability to provide of the men. This was done on purpose. None of this is by happenstance or by accident or by circumstance. No, this was on purpose. And so the fallout of that are your young men saying, yeah, we're done. And here's the thing. This is what was screaming at me listening to BGS talk. What was screaming at me was the Brother Roger report. And the Roger report saying some years ago, they didn't expect this to happen this early, right? They thought it was a possibility, but they didn't expect men to get their mind right and to be like, wait a minute, this early. They expected us to keep on fighting and attempting to air quotes, prove ourselves to the young women. And by attempting to prove ourselves, we would continue to perpetuate the BS, right? And so we find ourselves in this position. Where the young people are no longer engaging with each other in a significant enough number. And I have to stress that because, I don't want to be too hyperbolic. It's not all, but it's enough. It's enough where it's causing societal problems, right? Oh, the Brother Roger report is listening in. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me hurry up and read Big Kev's comment while I'm on this red light. Okay, and Big Kev says, and thank you for the super chat. Big Kev says, there are elements of nature that are mutable and other elements that are immutable. The far left seeks to change, quote, change the immutable elements of nature. Exactly. And they're running into the wall of that. So they're asking and begging the men to prop this up. And the Roger report says, that brother had a point for sure. So the brother the Raj report says the brother the Raj report definitely had a point for sure, right? And yeah, so you know, this is the cost. What? Better you said better 48-year bust down. I'm telling you, right? And there is a cost to the excuse me, to the atomization of society. There is a cost to the hypernormalization of society. What is going on with these people at this light? You know, yeah. So, and the cost is what we're dealing with now, right? The cost is what we're doing for young people, young men. For any women that are listening, the one or two of you that are listening, y'all don't understand what the biological and the sex drive of men is like. You don't, yeah, especially under the age of like 30, definitely under the age of 25, right? That's why you hear so many elders and older men in particular like preach to young men not to think with their lower head, because that's pretty much what it is, right? And so for those young men to say, screw it, I would rather be single. I would rather be at home, diddling myself. I would rather be at home playing video games or talking to my friends online or staying the hell away from the women, right? Like, men are willing to deal with some crap to engage with women. And for more and more of your young men to say, yeah, nah. I don't think women really understand, especially women without brothers or sons or whatnot, really understand what society you live in when the men really don't want to interact with the women like that anymore. It can't be it really can't be put into words what society you live in when the young men are like, yeah, I would rather be single. It's difficult to actually describe that to women, because they really don't understand what a 21-year-old young man is experiencing when the wind blows the wrong way. Right? And the cost of that on a societal level for your young men to pretty much say, I would rather watch porn and like I said, diddle myself, than even attempt to engage in any situation with a man, right? And to feel as if, and to actually have it vocalize that the system is kind of against you, or is actually playing defense for the women. And give me a second, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll pause right here for a second. All right, I'm back for a second. I am going to play the definition of atomized and hypernormalization again. I actually really enjoy the definition of hypernormalized normalization. Excuse me. Let me say it again. Hypernormalization. It's a pretty long documentary. Um, excuse me. That Adam Curtis, the documentarian, did. I watched it. Pretty good. Pretty damn good. Right. Right. And ah, Trell, I'm telling y'all, Trell is the funniest person in Mr. Z comments. I'm telling y'all. Like, and Trell said, pun intended, Trell said, get more joy playing with his sticks. I mean, Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely, right? That's real hysterical, right? But it's true, yo. It's like, in all honesty, and why not? And by the way, you know, oh, give me a second, you guys. Pulling up to the window. Give me a second, yo. And no, it's not Popeyes. Hysterical. Before somebody says it. That's funny. Better you, and better uses. Better uses. We gonna know Z made it when he leaves us with starts leaving us with a substitute teacher during these moments. That is hysterical. First of all, how much money would I have to be making? Right? How much money would I have to be making? That's hysterical. How much money would I have to be making to pay somebody just to stand in for like 2, 3 minutes, right? But Bojangles. We had Bojangles down here, and by the way, Bojangles breakfast is absolute fire. You want to know the last time I had Bojangles breakfast? Better you? Last time I was in your area. Last time I was in North Carolina was the last time I had Bojangles, and that was 2 years ago. That was the last time I had Bojangles, and Bojangles breakfast is fire. But we don't have Bojangles down here in South Florida anymore. I think the closest one is like damn near Central Florida or something like that. Right? We used to have Bojangles down here, but no longer. Hysterical. But back to the topic, yeah, the hypernormalization of our society is definitely affecting the way people move, right? And so, one thing I enjoy about the Brother the Roger report, one thing I enjoy about BGS is when they get into their black pill bag, right? When they get into their black, what it looks like and what it sounds like to be black pill, right? And I'm not saying that Raj is all the way black pill, but when Raj gets into the black pill bag and you hear how dark this can look, right? And he takes away any sense of morality or any sense of ethics or any of that, and it's just cut and dry, 1-to-1. The reason why I enjoy that is because that's real. That's what this would look like. And quite frankly, we're slowly making baby steps into that world, short of laws protecting people from straight out being murked, right? Oh, do not eat your no, I do not eat. I've never been in the churches. Never been in the churches, right? Never, right? Had it a couple of times. Yes, we have a churches down here. We have a churches not too far from my mom and my dad's house, but yeah, no. Yeah, we have a churches not too far from my parents' house. My mom bought churches to the house a couple of times. My dad bought churches to the house a couple of times growing up. It just never was the thing for me. Yeah, never. Right. And yeah, Joe says Black Pill Roger is cold but brutal, and that's the way it need to be. That's the way it needs to sound because, quite frankly, if we don't get a hold of a new social contract, and I think if if I had a chance to speak to the brother FD again, or any one of the lefty women on that side, that's what I think I need to stress. I have to. You know what I should have did. And I should have been like KRS-One, and I messed up with this. I need to have a list of very important talking points that if I ever find myself in the same chat room with these people, or God forbid, actually even meet them in real life, that I have a list of things that I have to say, right? The elevator pitch, right? I have a list of things that I have to say, and I have to be able to get it out in a minute to 30 seconds, right? And the new social contract, whatever it's supposed to be, or is one of those things. Give me a second, yo. And we're back. I hate you, Ed. I hate you for this. Ed just came in and just said, "Nigga, it's over." Oh, Ed just came and said, "Nigga, fuck all that. It's over." Oh yeah, we're using profanity today. It's too late. I already used it, right? But Ed said, "Drop the link." Ed, I'm driving in the car. God, you know what I'm gonna have to do? Like, see, I'm gonna have to have the link ready and maybe bring a person up at a time when I'm driving. That way I can still manage the conversation. Y'all are giving me ideas. Thank you. But Ed, I'm driving right now. I literally just pulled out of the drive-through when you said that. So yeah, I can't drop the link right now. Because I would have to switch through window. Oh, the light's green. Haha. What y'all doing at this light, bro? Bro, these people are the worst. Oh, they're the worst. Jesus Christ. Okay, so yeah, but the hypernormalization and the atomization of society. Oh no, Ed said it's either take a 370 deal. I know he means 360 deal, 370 deal, or go independent. And I would, you know what? Put it in the book. That Ed be coming up with these dope ass like concepts too. So that's something you could actually explore, Ed, which is like the relationship 360 deal or lack thereof, right? The intimacy 360 deal for men that society is actually trying to get men. You know what? I want to. If you don't mind, Ed, I gotta get your email because I want us to explore that shit either on my channel or your channel. It doesn't matter. I want us to explore that shit. The 360 deal for young men, and that goes from everything from relationships and intimacy to taxes to holding up half of America. The relationship. Well, I don't want to call it the relationship 360 deal. The 360 deal for men that the society is trying to get men to go along with. That's actually really, really a dope concept. The 360 deal for young men, right? And for those of you that don't know, the 360 deal for record labels, I mean, there's definitely people that know way better about this than I do, i.e. Black Uru, which is like pretty much the record label could touch all your money. There's nothing that you get 100% cut in. The record label takes whatever percentage off of everything you make, from tours to merchandise to album sales, everything, right? Everything. Let's say it's 20%. They took 20% off of everything, right? Indefinitely. Right? Yeah, so yeah, that I actually like that. 360 deal or go independent. That's a dope concept. And in a society that's increasingly atomized, I don't think we really have a choice. I think the only reason the Black manosphere isn't bigger is because first of all, not enough people know about us, but also the shaming tactics of you know, the women and whatnot. But because I would argue a lot of men are experiencing these things that I would argue is particularly in the West, particularly in America, are experiencing the things we're talking about. But they don't know that there's a place where we talk about this all the time, right? I don't think they realize that there is a place online where we speak about these things, where we speak about answers, we speak about ways to remedy this, we speak about being indifferent, we speak about passport bros, we speak about SYSBM, you know, we Black, but at the same time are not gonna punish you or chastise you for, you know, doing what you gotta do. We have all of that here, you know, in the Black manosphere. I would argue that's mainly the reason why we're not larger, right? But there's a cost to not having a social contract that the men would sign on to, right? And like I said, I have to work on my bullet points, my 30-second, maybe 60-second elevator pitch, right? And Ed says, red pill is the independent. Yep. Right. I really have to work on that because what is okay, fine. Y'all want to get rid of the old social contract. What's the new social contract? And like, I'm thinking about that as I'm thinking about, for those of you who haven't seen the Rollo Tomasi, Richard Reeves back and forth on Dr. Phil, I would suggest you watch it because Richard Reeves didn't actually disagree with some of what Rollo was saying. He just didn't like the biological determinism, the way that it felt so constraining, right? He knew that men and women had certain proclivities. Richard Reeves knows this. He has sons, right? I think he has 3 sons. He knows. But the way it sounds, how air quotes constraining and limiting it is, at least from the way they view it, that's what they have an issue with. Right? And thank you, Trell. And we have PhDs, right? It's not a bunch of losers over here. And we have PhDs over here. And it's not a bunch of, low financially earning brothers. Yeah, we have brothers that don't earn a lot, and yeah, we let them talk too. But yeah, we got 6-figure brothers over here too. Right? So yeah, oh, there we go. Yeah, so I think that's important. The whatever new social contract these people are working on, they need to come with it, and hope to God that the men sign on. Because if the men don't sign on, you get what you have now, right? And that tie that to hypernormalization. Hypernormalization exists because the men know that there's something not right about this. Let me see if I can hurry up and play this while I'm at this light, because I ain't going nowhere anytime soon, right? Give me a second. Let me see, because some of you that came in, y'all didn't hear this earlier. Give me 1 second. Okay, so let me see. Once I come to a complete stop, I will play it again. This is the definition of hypernormalization for those of you that heard me say it and you don't know what it means. Give me 1 second. Here we go, y'all.
The term comes from a rather interesting guy who wrote about what it was like to live in the Soviet Union in the middle of the 1980s, when the Soviet Union was collapsing, because there wasn't really any protest at the time. What he pointed out is that everyone knew that everything was not right. They knew that those in control had no control. They knew that those running the economy were not in control, that everything was corrupt and often completely fake because the leaders were pretending they were in control. Everybody knew this, and the leaders knew that everybody knew this, but nobody did anything about it because there was nothing else. It was normal. And he coined the phrase hypernormalization to describe this. Somehow you knew that everything was a bit odd and a bit unreal and often fake, but because there was no other picture of the world and you were so within this system, you accepted it as normal and just went on. And what I'm trying to argue in this film is not that in any way we're like the Soviet Union. We're a very different society, but what we do share with that time is a sense among a lot of people that things are a bit odd and unreal and sometimes fake, and that those in charge know that they're not in charge, and they know that we know they're not in charge of things, that everything is a bit chaotic and uncertain. We distrust everyone in charge. We also know those in charge allow a great deal of corruption to carry on without doing much about it. We know that they're not in control of the economy. They know that we know they're not in control of the economy. But at the very same time, we are so much a part of that system that we don't have any vision of an alternative. And I include by that the left. They don't have a vision of an alternative. So we accept it as normal. When you see...
Right? So that's hypernormalization. Being a bit odd, right? So the boys and the men realize, they're like, something ain't right. Something's not right. Something, they're putting their finger to the wind, right? They lick their finger, they put it up in the air, and they're like, wait a minute, something ain't right. Is the air always supposed to be flowing to the women's side? Is that what it's always supposed to be doing? Right? And let me pause right here. And Big Kev says they want strong families whilst being anti-male. Exactly. Right? And it's the old trope of the staunch feminist that's been married for 20 years. And that's a stay-at-home mom. Cute. Right? By the way, Mr. Z did meet a couple when I worked for the Florida Democratic Party. And you got to know Mr. Z reminded them of that, right? You got to know Mr. Z reminded them of that. You'd be a fool if you think Mr. Z ain't bring it up in the middle of a back and forth. Right? Now, I did do it in a very soft-handed way, subtle way, but don't get it twisted. White women know. They know when you get at them, right? And Mr. ZJ, you know the soft tap, just the soft. You don't gotta punch them in the face. Just the soft tap. They knew exactly what I was saying. Lady, you're a whole feminist supposedly while you're living off of your husband. Lady, you literally just came from Seattle, Washington, to campaign down here in Florida off of your husband's money. Right? You're a feminist because you don't got nothing else to do, right? And shout out to you, but still, and but yeah. So let me read this also. And Better You says capitalism, in my opinion, is the driving force behind atomization, the atomization of society. Let's read that one more time. I got tongue tied. Capitalization is in Mr. Z. What you got going on right now? Capitalism, in my opinion, is the driving force behind automation of society. The fierce idea of individualism erodes ideas of collectivism structures. I mean, I couldn't say it better myself, clearly, because I was getting tongue tied. Pretty much, right? And so that's always what I posit to the political right, right? All my brothers, part of the Black Manosphere, we're still all part of the Black Manosphere, but on the political right, I'm always like, how is this supposed to work? Y'all do know, and even to the point where, yeah, Tucker Carlson of all people, Tucker the sucker Carlton, right? Or Carlson, what am I saying? Carson, right? Don't be a Tucker sucker. Don't be. What did Tariq say? Don't be a sucker. Tucker, Tucker Carlson, right? Um, Even he recognizes this. Train tracks, train tracks, train tracks. You know, and from my understanding, he has the highest rated show on any news network at this time. And even he recognized the limitations of capitalism and how unchecked capitalism will rip families apart, which it's kind of doing now. Now, that doesn't mean there's not that doesn't mean that we don't have people that are enjoying this. That doesn't mean that we don't have wayward women. That doesn't mean we don't have. So like Mr. Z is not also taking away from the accountability of the women that are participating in the destruction of the family by filing divorce because their husband left the toilet seat up one too many times, or because they hit a speed bump financially, or any of that, right? So we're not going to take away from them with that also, but to ignore the systemic incentives for not getting married, or for getting divorced, or for staying on the dating market hoping to get the most ballerific dude you possibly can, I think is very ignorant. It's very myopic to say, system, what system? There's no problem here. Capitalism, no, that's the perfect system, absolutely perfect. And you know, if there's an issue with it, then you need to find a way to mitigate it yourself in your own life. Well, how is that working for our society? It's not. Right? So to my brothers on the political right, I would say this is something that, you know, I think that you guys should work on, or, you know, have conversations about. We're definitely having it on the political left. How do you mitigate for the ravages of capitalism with the family? And just blaming it on character flaw with the men or the women or both, it's not good enough. Clearly, millennials and Gen Z don't agree, as evidenced by their lack of marriage and, quite frankly, their lack of intimacy and even sex, right? So that's something to consider, right? And Mr. Z is down for any panel that you want to have the conversation with, right? So, you know, my email is in the description. So, and Joe says we're all in. We're just waiting for the crash. Pretty okay. So, and that's speaking to the hypernormalization, right? So we're all in. We're just waiting on the crash. And yeah, right. And so that's something that Rollo could have said to Richard Reeves, which is like, all right, so what's the new social contract then? Fine, you want to get rid of the old one. What's the new one that men are going to sign up for? All right, you know what? Forget the old men. Forget all the men over the age of 30, over the age of 35. You know, screw them. Over the age of 40, y'all pick it. What's the new social contract for the dudes under 30 that they're going to sign up for, right? And that's going to be rewarding for them, because if they sign up for it and within 5 years their life still is the same way it is before this supposed new social contract, then you got to understand you're dealing with a whole new monster on your hands now, right? And I want to play the definition of atomization again, if I can find my little trusty dusty voice recorder. I don't know what I did with that thing. The light turned green. I think I just threw it on the passenger seat somewhere. Or there it goes. Okay, there we go. right? Before this light turned green, let me play the definition of atomization. And when you hear the definition, just think of it on a societal human level, right? Because it's going to be somewhat of a scientific answer. Trell, you see me? And Trell said, no country for old men, no country for young men, no country for any men, right? Okay, light turn. It literally as I'm about to press the damn button. But yeah. So this is something that we really have to like grapple with. You know, Mr. Z is not just saying these things just to say them. These are things that we really have to grapple with. Oh, they finally moved it. Right. It only took them 2 months. They finally moved it. Okay. Work related stuff, you guys. Give me 1 second. Let me get in this park, and I'll be talking crap about people that be parallel parking. So I want to make sure that I still am justified in that by doing this in one go. And it looks like I'm gonna be able to do it. Let's see. Look at that driving skills. Look at that, Mr. Z. One go, parallel park. There you go. One go. There we go. Right. All right. Let's play this, and we'll come back on the other end. All right. Give me a second, everybody. And it's going to be a very short definition, but think of it more societally. Okay, here we go.
What is the meaning of the word atomization? As a noun, separating something into fine particles. Annihilation by reducing something to atoms. Atomization is
Yep. So, separating things into particles, right? So, and I would argue social media is helping to do that, right? And I would argue, so this is where the left, so I just got on the right, let's get on the left. This is where the left gets real wonky when we start redefining words, when we start letting people yeah, I don't want to go too far into that, but you know, define themselves very, very particularly, right? When we start using language that is meant to stay in academia, when we start allowing that to get too far into pop culture, um, these kind of like very obscure definitions and words for things, um, the culture war, right? So I've said this before. The left won the culture war. They didn't win much of anything else over the past 50 years, but they won the culture war, right? And I want the right and the left to be honest about that. The right makes it seem like the left is winning left and right. No, actually, when it comes to money and our concept of everything else, the right won, right? The right won the like Pascal Robert says, the counter-revolutionary, the 50-year counter-revolutionary war, the political right won that, right? Look at neoliberalism. Look at how we talk about money. We think about money and all of that. That's the right. The left won the left won the culture war, right? And y'all give me a second. All right, work related stuff. All right. Okay. And Dr. Thunder is in here. And Dr. Thunder says, take some money. uh, you know what? That's funny. I'm just thinking about Dr. Thunder doing a drive-by instead of shooting you, he just throws money out the window. Uh, that's funny. I wish people would do drive-bys with money guns, right? Maybe we need to create a money gun for homeless. It's borderline disrespectful. Disrespectful because we'll be shooting dollars at. Wait, they already got a dollar gun, don't they? Yeah, I think I've seen it before. I think there's already a dollar gun, right? But that's hysterical. Uh Okay, so thank you, Joe. So Joe, that was funny, Dr. Thunder. Um, and Joe says, so atomization of men's entire existence slash experiences? Question mark. Yes. Sorry. And Dr. Thunder says, I'm rich, biatch. uh, hysterical. Uh, right. Shout out to Snoop and shout out to Dave Chappelle. Oh man. But hysterical. And yeah, but going to what Joe said, that was funny, Dr. Thunder. And so Joe says, so atomization of men's entire experiences and existence. Yes. Ding 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 ding. Yes. Yeah. Right. And I don't think it's just men's experiences. I think it's women's experiences too, but I think the sisterhood and the men ain't ish is really the only thing they really coalesce around. When you look at the class divide between black women, when you look at how many black women are struggling financially, and you realize the elite black women and who they're rubbing elbows with and how they are actually detrimental to class the class consciousness of working class and poor women, you realize how much of this is like a scheme. Because the only thing they actually agree on is black men not being ish, right? But the women that got some money, even black women that got some money, that got some, connections and whatnot, they don't share much of anything with working class poor women, particularly black women, right? So the atomization of even their experiences, like I said, the only thing that's keeping them in any type of air quotes community with each other is the agreeing that, oh yeah, black men ain't ish. Yeah, I agree with that too. Everything else, nah, right? Maybe you can also add in the fact that the handful of women that actually got that actually have the $2,000 Louis Vuitton bag, and then the women that aspire to have it. Maybe that's something else that they can both agree on. They all trying to get red bottoms, right? But outside of that, not really, right? So the experiences are important, but like I said, your society cannot continue without a common narrative, without a common goal, without the appreciation of others. And we're living in a society where it's not just it's not only that we do not have an appreciation for others, we don't have an appreciation specifically for men not part of that top 20%. It's really the top 1%, but being nice, the top 20%. And Charles Bentley said exactly, it is why I quote Animal Farm so often, right? When the pigs become the humans, when they become indistinguishable from the humans. I see you, Trell. I know what you're saying, right? And that would, by the way, this is why Martin Luther King was on the Poor People's Campaign when he was assassinated. That's what he was doing. He realized, wait a minute, the first black people to run in the door and get some money, they're not actually turning around and looking out for the masses of black people. They just want this money so they could turn around and look down on other Negroes while like butt kissing, upper middle class and rich white folks. Their goal is to be chocolate dip white folks. Right? And like I said, Mr. Z is doing I-ish right now in life. And I still talk about poor, and I still talk about work. Well, I am working class, but I still speak about poor, right? And lower middle class and working class, because even if Mr. Z was to come up, if I don't really play the lottery like that, but if I was to play the lottery and win some $100 million, I would still, this would still be my project, right? This would still be my project, particularly emphasizing working class, poor, lower middle class, men and women, but in this case, particularly men, particularly black men. Because very few people have gotten it the worst over the past 50 years. Once again, Pascal Robert, the 50-year counter-revolutionary movement, um, like working class, lower middle class, and poor men, right? Yeah, you see what I'm saying, Lithium? And Lithium says messing with America's money and unionizing the South is really what got Dr. King deleted. And you know, Lithium, now you got me really going into my lefty bag. That's something a lot of brothers don't want to talk about. I said this before. Who was I? I was debating a brother online in one of these spaces, and I was like, y'all gotta be honest. Political brothers on the right, yeah, I'm not saying they don't get hemmed up, but the brothers, once they start tipping their toe too far in the left, they get offed. Once you start talking about spreading this wealth around, boy, they be ready to up, you know, the whole McCarthy era, right? If the McCarthy era was going after white people anywhere left of center, going further left, then you gotta know what they were doing to black people left of center, going further left. Joe's is hysterical. Joe said, "SYS, Mr. Z, get that skyline and forget about these ninjas." I couldn't. I couldn't, man. I don't know how I would be able to go to sleep at night. I couldn't. I couldn't. Right? I do. My dream car really is a 1997 R33 GTR V-Spec in deep sea marine blue with the gold BBSs and the step lip and the polish lip. Y'all thought I didn't. I didn't dream about this car so much. I know exactly how I want it to look. Right? So, the Z is my second, but the 300ZX twin turbo, which I own, is my second favorite car in the world. But my first is definitely that 97 R33, which, by the way, nobody cared about until it became available in America. It was always the ugly duckling of the GTRs. It was always about the 32 because it's lightest and it's the real Godzilla, and the 34 because of, the movies and Fast and Furious and Gran Turismo. I always was an R33 fan. Right? So yeah. Anyway, that's a side note. Car talk. Sorry, everyone. But I couldn't go to sleep at night because I truly believe that if you're living in a society, right? America, 330 plus million people, planet, 8 billion people. It can't all be about you. Like, I enjoy my life. I've been on the up and up financially straight for the past 5 years. For the past 5 years straight, I've been going up and up every year financially. I didn't feel COVID. I took a tiny dent financially during COVID, and it didn't even last that long. Quite frankly, it did. The dent only lasted like 3 months, something like that, 3-4 months, right? So it wasn't even half the year. But that doesn't mean anything because I still live amongst black people in the black community. I still live in America. I still live on this planet, right? It still matters. What other people, that whole what they say, what you eat won't make me poop. That's not the word they use, but that's a lie, actually. Like, on a societal level, that's a lie. On a familial level, that's a lie. We don't even got to go full society or community. What happens to your daughter, what happens to your son, what happens to you, what happens to your father or your mother, what happens to your wife, father or mother, does have an effect on you. It may not be happening to you, but you do get the residual effects. If your brother-in-law ends up in prison right now, that affects you. You're not the one in prison, but it affects you, particularly if your wife was very close to her brother. Right? So, I'm gonna play the definition of hypernormalization again, or the description, better yet. It's not, I don't know how well of a definition it is, and shout out to Adam Curtis for giving us this, right? Dude does really good documentaries. They're long. He is becoming more and more dark as he gets older, right? And I understand, right? But yeah. Let's play this, and here we go.
A term comes from a rather interesting guy who wrote about what it was like to live in the Soviet Union in the middle of the 1980s, when the Soviet Union was collapsing, because there wasn't really any protest at the time. What he pointed out is that everyone knew that everything was not right. They knew that those in control had no control. They knew that those running the economy were not in control, that everything was corrupt and often completely fake because the leaders were pretending they were in control. Everybody knew this, and the leaders knew that everybody knew this, but nobody did anything about it because there was nothing else. It was normal. And he coined the phrase hypernormalization to describe this. Somehow you knew that everything was a bit odd and a bit unreal and often fake, but because there was no other picture of the world and you were so within this system, you accepted it as normal and just went on. And what I'm trying to argue in this film is not that in any way we're like the Soviet Union. We're a very different society, but what we do share at that time is a sense among a lot of people that things are a bit odd and unreal and sometimes fake, and that those in charge know that they're not in charge, and they know that we know they're not in charge of things, that everything is a bit chaotic, uncertain. We distrust everyone in charge. We also know those in charge allow a great deal of corruption to carry on without doing much about it. We know that they're not in control of the economy. They know that we know they're not in control of the economy. But at the very same time, we are so much a part of that system that we don't have any vision of an alternative. And I include by that the left. They don't have a vision of an alternative. So we accept it as normal. When you see...
Yep. Yep. So this is where you hear me speak about the social contract. And if there is to be a new social contract, look, yes, I'm politically on the left, but I don't swear my allegiance to this. I don't swear my allegiance to anything other than other black people, quite frankly. I just think certain things would be best on a societal level and on a community level. But even with that, y'all already see how I am. Once they start getting too far into the rainbow talk, can't do it. I can't ride with y'all with that. Right? Once they start getting too wonky and some of this what I can't go too extreme left. So that's why you hear Mr. Z. I'm not a Marxist by any means, right? I'm not a communist by any means. I would define myself more as a democratic socialist, which by the way, on the extreme left, they laugh at us with that. It's a joke. Because for them, it's like no true Scotsman, right? If you're not all the way over here about to fall off the table left, then are you really a lefty? Right? Just like on the right, we have our own left versions of the Tea Party, right? It just doesn't get any traction because I would agree with FD Signifier when he was speaking to Kidology, where the Overton window, the country, America is so far right that like Joe Biden would be a right-leaning candidate in any other country in the West. So would Bill Clinton, so would Barack Obama. But because we're so far right, these people are in the Democratic Party. They're on the political left of America. Right? So tying all of these things together, thank you, Lithium. Like, this is what I can't get down with the left. Birthing person. Once we start talking like that on the left, I'm done. Mr. Z has exited the chat. Like, once we start doing this on the left, I'm done. I can't excuse me, just rip the headphone out of my ear. I can't do that. I can't engage in this type of talk on the left. This is when I'm like, okay, y'all doing too much. Right? Like, I'm about being a sensible lefty. That's why I can have conversations with conservative, right? And we disagree, but it's still not necessarily contentious, right? Because if you sound reasonable, I might even entertain a bit of not sounding reasonable. But once we start getting too far into this type of talk, birthing person, you mean mother? Right? Once we get into birthing person, I can't, just to protect the sensibilities of the trans community. I mean, which by the way is like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of Western population, particularly American population. Like, I can't do it. I can't. I can't. Right? So, tying everything together, and the reason why I brought up the social contract, if there is to be a new social contract, if it works, then cool. And if it works for men, black men, then cool. The problem is y'all either don't have a vision for a new social contract. So, like I've said this before, and others have said this before, the right wants to go back to 1950s, and what you find out, speak to BGS, is even their vision of the 1950s is not accurate. That's a Hollywood vision of the 1950s. So the right wants to go back to the 1950s, and the left just wants you to freestyle. They don't actually have an answer. Their answer is, well, maybe if we just scramble all these eggs, right, then we can have some of the similar outcomes from, you know, when things were air quotes nicer pre-war, right? So neither left or right politically really have a actual real answer. We can't go back to the 1950s. That's not a thing. And even if we could, your vision of the 1950s is not accurate. And then the left think that they can, you know, piecemeal together some coalition of people that barely agree with each other, if even, and like skyrocket into some future where none of us are obligated to each other, but yet we still have a sense of community. What? Right? Where everybody gets to freestyle, but yet we freestyle our way right into being in community with each other, which in a weird way, the political right, the Christian right, believes in also. I would like to direct y'all to Ben Shapiro speaking about healthcare. It gets real ugly real fast. Right? It gets real ugly real fast. Don't let the fact that he speaks fast and he occasionally uses 3 and 4 syllable words, don't let it confuse you to the fact that he don't actually have an answer. His answer is community hospitals funded by what exactly? These people don't have an answer. Going back to hypernormalization, something that, like I said, young men, particularly young black men, they lick their finger, they put it up to the wind, it's all flowing to the women, and they're like, something ain't right here. And like I said, the political right is like, yeah, we need to go back to 1950s relationships. In the left, excuse me, that's the political right. The political left is like, well, maybe because you haven't adhered to more feminist and intersectional feminist ideology. Why do you even want a woman? Why don't you want a man? Right? Thank you, Lithium. You see that too, right? Cough, cough, kidology. Everybody is a unique snowflakes. Never generalize. I love the sister, but dang, does she sometimes say dumb stuff. Bruh, listening to her speak to FD Signifier, like, if y'all want to root for FD Signifier for once, listen to that conversation with him and Kidology. And Kidology is such a hyper individualist. And I get it. You're a dark-skinned black woman in a predominantly white environment, and you ain't accepted by the black people necessarily, and you definitely not accepted by the white people. So now you're on some hyper individualistic thing. People need to let go of their traumas like this. You think Mr. Z didn't have trauma growing up that I don't have none now? But when we start talking like this, because people still holding on to not being accepted as a kid or even a young adult, like let that ish go. It's hampering your politics. Or it's making you sound real foolish. Bruh, thank you, Trell. Somebody said this in my comments for something once, and I loved it, and I love it again that Trell said it. Talking loud, but ain't saying nothing. For real. Jesus Christ. But on that note, we'll end right here. We'll pause it right here. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Yeah. Like I said, man, this is some insanity. I need to hurry up. See, I was about to say Trell. Charles, was it Charles that expert link? No, it was Ed that expert link. And I told him I was on, I couldn't, and like, no, I'm still talking. So let me get out of here. So love, peace, and chicken grease. We'll pause right here. Y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content. Check the links in the description. Actually, I'm going to add one link to the description. So I'm going to add the beginning of the definition for hypernormalization was an interview that Adam Curtis did. So I'll add that to the description also. That wasn't in the description box. Um, and yeah, look, man, we need to come up with a, maybe that's the thing. Maybe as a addendum or a add-on, or like more of a social add-on to the 15-point plan from Dr. T. Maybe we could come up with our own. I don't want to say strictly defined because I don't know if I want people to go to prison, but loosely defined social contract for the black community, right? Or particularly for black men, right? Things that we adhere to. Um, and I would just be putting words to it and putting it on paper, but it'd be something that's largely unwritten rules, right? Even though I'm literally going to be typing it down. So that's something to think about, you know. And on that note, we'll pause right there. Um, yeah, and shout out to the brother Edward Anderson. Shout out to Dr. Thunder. Shout out to all of you. Um, yeah, the hypernormalization and atomization of the young male, right? Um, and it ain't looking good. That's not for all of our sons. That's not for all of us or the men, right? Many of us are going to be okay. But as a rule for society, you don't need it to be most. All it need to be is a critical mass, and your society is upside down. It don't have to be all, and it doesn't have to be most. It just has to be a critical mass, right? And on that note, we'll end it right there. These people better come up with a new social contract like yesterday, a one that works for men, particularly black men. And if not, well, SYSBM and Passport Bros and all the rest of it, right? And I'll end out on that, right? Love, peace, and chicken grease. All right, you guys. Have a good day.